Hello everyone, and welcome to Behind the Curtains, an event brought to you by Myo Detox. My name is Jason Kahn. I'm the Regional Director of Myo Detox Toronto. We are here tonight to provide you guys a little bit of insight, what it is like to work with athletes behind the scenes. Tonight we are privileged to be joined here by Mike Mancias, performance coach to LeBron James and the author of Game Plan. We are also privileged to be here tonight is Vinh Pham, physical therapist and co-founder of Myo Detox. Tonight will be moderated by Dr. Kevin Marryshow, chiropractor and director of brand for Myo Detox. So let's get this exciting night started, and let me throw it to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Appreciate the welcome, Jay. Thank you all so much for coming out here tonight. I know it's a Monday after Easter weekend, long weekend. When we were talking about having the event on this day, like, Mike, you probably only got one day to be out here. What day is that? And it was Monday, so we had to work it out. So I know, for those college hoop fans out there, it's probably the most historic day in women's college sports history. So if y'all watching the game out there, you let us keep us up on the score. But it's an incredible day for sports, which is really timely for this conversation. I want to thank Altia and Amber for making this event possible, for giving us this space to have this conversation. Yes, I want to really jump into it with y'all. We don't have a lot of time. We got an hour with you two gentlemen. Jay, when you had the idea for this conversation, I had two things that came to mind. One was it would be an incredible space to have a really intimate conversation about, like, the name of the event is Behind the Curtain for a reason. A lot of what happens behind the curtain in pro sports and with athletics doesn't get talked about. There's not a clear and open space to have a transparent conversation about what it's like to get there and what it's like to be there. The other end was, Jay, this is not gonna happen. Like, these two gentlemen are incredibly busy. Having them in the same city at the same time, let alone the same space, didn't feel like it was gonna be possible. So appreciate you two busy gentlemen for carving out time to have this conversation with us. Just to give you two context on who's in the room, there's everybody here from folks that are currently still in school, whether it's in physical therapy school, chiropractors, massage therapists out there. There's also folks who currently work in the pro sports arena, who currently work with athletes. On one end, folks that have never worked with an athlete before they're thinking about, what is it like? How'd you get here? Now that you're here, what's it like? All of that behind the curtain. On the other end, there's folks that are in the space and just want different perspective. Just want to know about what your perspective is like working with pro athletes, the experiences that y'all have had. So let's get into it. Would love to kick off with your journey. Vin's like, yo, Mike's gonna get us out the gates here, even though he just pulled up. Your journey is an incredibly important part of this conversation. Whether you've taken us through school, your training, your process of getting here, just your entire journey to getting to this point. Was the plan always to work with pro athletes? Was it always to be part of a team? Was it to have one client? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
All right, well, first off, thank you. Thank you everyone for showing up and for having me. It's an honor, really. It really is. As far as my journey and how I started about 23 years ago, I started off as an intern athletic trainer at the University of Texas Pan American in South Texas. Very small Division I university. But before I started that, I think it was my senior year in high school, and I played basketball, if you can believe it. I played basketball, and we're having a senior meeting, and everyone said, well, next year I'm going to start college. I'm going to study this. I'm going to study that. And then they came to me and said, Mike, what do you want to do? And I said, God, I have no idea. I love basketball, I love sports, and I love medicine, biology, all that stuff. So a buddy of mine says, well, why don't you become a trainer, an athletic trainer? I said, what is that? You mean the guy that tapes our ankles? And they said, yeah. I said, well, you got to go to school for that? And they said, yes, Mike, you got to do it. I said, oh, okay, that sounds good. So I got a scholarship, and I started interning. And the first 2 weeks, I was so intimidated, guys. I was so intimidated because I never worked, with these what I thought what they were high caliber athletes, Division I athletes, and so I was intimidated. I was there for like a week, and I said, I don't know if this is for me, guys. It's just way above my head, and so I stopped showing up. I stopped showing up in the training room, and then I was talking to my mom. She said, well, why are you there if you're not showing up? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know if this is for me. She goes, you had a goal of working with these guys. Suck it up and go. You got to show up or come back home. So I went back. I spoke to the head trainer. I said, all right, I want to do this again. And, all right, cool. And from then on out, I just made a commitment to studying and studying and studying and just studying my craft. And if I was there, okay, then I'm going to be the best version of myself, the best version of an athletic trainer that I can be. And so I started working with paramedics. I started working with physical therapists. I started working at a hospital as an intern. Again, when I say working, I was working for free. It was a summer after summer, just volunteering, working for free, answering calls, answering like 911 calls, sometimes for paramedics, et cetera. And just a fire department. One time I worked for a fire department for their paramedics, and then just said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to attack all disciplines and just get like little tools and add them to my toolbox. So when I do work with these guys, I have the confidence and the skills to flourish and to do well. So that was really how I got started. And then from then on out, it was just really committing yourself to those athletes. And here we are. Here we are. As far as working with the pros and how I got to the pros, this was a little before email, if you can believe it. So I started cold calling these pro teams, introducing myself on the phone. And now I know how busy they were, and God bless them for even answering the phone, because now I don't think we have time to answer our phones anymore. But they answered the phone, they walked me through it. They said, well, Mike, if you're really serious about it, we have a camp in Chicago for guys that are entering the draft, and you can volunteer there. I said, okay, great. So I go, I take the Greyhound bus from South Texas to Chicago, and I stayed with a cousin of mine that I haven't seen in about 12 years or something. She goes, oh yeah, I guess you can sleep on the couch, but the point is, you do whatever you have to do, guys. Whatever you have to do. If that's your goal, then just don't hesitate. Just do it. Just do it. And then I started networking once I was there, working this NBA draft combine. And I got a call from the Milwaukee Bucks 22 years ago. I started as an intern. Then the Cavaliers called me to be their intern. And that's where I met a guy that's pretty famous now. So, and here we are. Again, 21, 22, 23 years later. I don't know, I lose track, but here we are. So that's the journey in a nutshell. Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing that, Mike. Vin.
I mean, what journey do you want? Do you want, like...
I know, right?
There's just so many journeys.
I got to be more specific. No, you're right.
Yeah.
So a lot of the folks in the crowd, familiar faces that work at Myo Detox. And you know a lot of Vin's story that led him up until this point. But if we think about just the pro sports arena, very similar question in the vein of, did you plan to work with pro athletes? Was that part of the plan?
Yeah. Personally, like, I never really played a lot of team sports because I was straight up a nerd, and I just really was bad at every single team sport you can think of. So, but I actually spent a lot of time in doing mixed martial arts. And then randomly one day, I don't know if you guys know Elias Theodoro, rest in peace to my boy. He's actually from Toronto, and then he randomly got connected to him through one of our friends, Lachlan. And then he was like, oh, hey, like, I'm looking for a therapist, I'm an up-and-coming fighter. I just won the Ultimate Fighter. Like, can you come help me be part of the team? And then one thing led to another, and I became part of the team. And that was kind of like the beginning of my journey. One funny story is, one day he asked me, Elias was like, hey, bro, like, do you want to come, like, walk me out? You know when they do the weigh-ins, and then you walk out, like, to be part of the team? And this, I have literally never done this in my life. And then Elias was like, hey, I want you to film the whole thing. So it's actually literally online. There's this thing where Elias comes out and like does the weigh-in, and I'm like literally behind him with a camera, looking like a proud dad, like Asian, super Asian parent, like super like first time on stage. I'm like this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in front of Dana White. Everyone's here. This is crazy. And to the point where he did the weigh-in, and then I didn't know that it was my job to pick up his clothes on the ground. So we literally walked off stage, and then they were yelling at me. Like, yo, you forgot his clothes. And we're like, oh my God. And we all scrambled back and picked his clothes and left the stage. It was so crazy. And And yeah, so I started working with Elias for a while, and then from there I kind of started building with other UFC athletes. And then one day, one fateful day, this guy named Chicharito slid in my DMs on Instagram. He's like, hey, Vinny, like, I see you do a lot of great work. Like, would you be willing to come work with me, just to test? I just want to kind of see what your skill set is like. I'm like, sure. Like, I'll come down. Like, where are you at? And I honestly had no idea who Chicharito was. And I kind of just like, okay, cool. Like, I'm down. Like, where do you live? He's like, oh, I play for West Ham. I'm in London. Come through. And then, one tip that, Mike exemplifies very well is like, and to you guys I would recommend is like, anytime you're trying to make it, the focus should always be on building the relationship. Nothing else matters. It's all about like, you truly want to just work on the relationship, and it's not about like, hey, if I'm gonna do this for you, I'm gonna get this in return. I personally never think like that. I think about just giving everything that I am as a person to whatever individual I'm dealing with, and I just let the world dictate what the reward is. So in that case, I was like, hey, Cheech, I'm gonna come down. He's like, oh, how much you wanna get paid for it? I'm like, don't even worry about it. I'll fly down to London, just take care of my flight, put me in a hotel, I'm good. Pull up, worked with him for a week. And then, we just became friends. And then he's like, hey, listen, like, I want you to be my guy. I'm like, what does that even mean? He's like, no, I want you to, like travel with me, like, be my attending physio. And I'm like, hey, listen, I can't. Man, I'm building Mayo, I'm doing all these things, and And he's like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, whatever it is you need, I got you. Then I obviously came back home, talked to Scott. I'm like, hey, like, would it make sense if I do this? Maybe I can do some of the work remote. And obviously, like, yeah, the rest is history. And then, we actually just ended our relationship on a very good note, mainly because he moved to Mexico, and now I have to continue to work on other things. But yeah, we had a beautiful, honestly, 4 or 5 years together. And I was telling Kev, actually, this is actually how you get if you guys want to work with athletes, it's so grueling emotionally, to the point where literally when he left to Mexico, it was the first time in like 5 years, that I did not see him like 3 to 5 times a week. And I literally woke up one day, I was in Vancouver at the leadership retreat, and I literally just started crying in the morning, like bawling. And Kayla was like, what's wrong with you? Like, I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. And I literally I sent him a voice note that morning, be like, hey, brother, I just want to let you know, like, I miss you so much. I love you so much. I did not think that I would be so emotional about us no longer working together due to distance, but I just want to let you know, like, I love you, I care for you, no. And yeah, and that's like how much how much energy it takes to work with an athlete. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. Yeah. I want to switch gears and move on to mastery. Everybody in the crowd, whether you're a coach, you're a clinician, there is even folks in the room that are neither, are just here because they're really curious and interested about the conversation in working in the sports arena. If you're here Monday evening, 7 o'clock, like, you are serious about your craft. Every day you are continuously chipping away at getting better. And these two gentlemen combine 30, 35 years of chipping away. Would love, Vin, if you don't mind kicking us off, just talking about your process and the progression to mastery. Where does the passion come from? Was it mentorship? Was it courses? Take us through a little bit of that journey.
I think one of my mentors in the space, actually, his name is Robert Greene, and he actually, surprisingly enough, wrote a book called Mastery. And the way that he goes about it is in like a few steps. I'm probably gonna mess this up, so Robert, if you're watching this, don't judge me. The first thing is, when it comes to mastery, is you gotta figure out what is your life task. What do you feel that you're uniquely positioned to solve for this planet? What do you wake up thinking about every day? And once you find that, you need to spend the next 5 to 10 years of your life dedicating yourself to learning, right? You need to become so good at the topic that you will not be denied when that time comes for your opportunity to shine. And then you should really value learning over resources, money, and everything. As long as you have enough money to pay for rent and take care of your basic needs, just really dive into the topic. Then once you're done that process of an apprenticeship, you can now concurrently also find a mentor if you want. And there's honestly almost no shortcut to mastery, but a mentor is kind of one thing that can kind of maybe steer you a little bit, tiny bit quicker. But it's still a 5 to 10 year process, because mastery is one of the few things that there's literally just, you cannot buy. You have to actually put in the work and do the hours. And then one final thing I would say on mastery is like, you cannot do it alone. So yes, you can spend the time working on the craft, studying, becoming amazing at it. But at the end of the day, we're social creatures. We move in packs. We work together. And if you haven't learned how to be socially intelligent, you don't dedicate time also to mastering emotional IQ, there's no way you will be able to actually truly become who you're meant to be. Because people will naturally block you. They're not going to like you. They're not going to want to work with you, so on and so forth. So those are the few things I would say is helpful for to mastery.
Mike, your take?
Yeah, I mean, I echo all the same thoughts. And, you know, you never want to, when you start this process, when you start this journey, you want to figure out, you know, number one, which way is north? You know, what way is north? Where do I really want to be? And you have to take these necessary steps. Again, trying to learn from folks around you, from therapists, you know, whatever your discipline may be. Just trying to work from you know, from some of the folks around you is vital, I think. But first off, figure out what exactly do I want, and where do I want to be.
Yeah, I want to double click on mentorship for a second, because I've had this conversation with a lot of folks where in passing we will mention you need to find a mentor, you need to find somebody to push you. And then I often get asked, how do you even start? Like Mike, you were mentioning earlier, which was really powerful, you made a lot of phone calls. You were willing to take a lot of no's until you got to that opportunity and experiences that was going to help you grow. But if you have any advice around how do you find a mentor, how do you go around about mentorship specifically?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it had to do with feel, just basic human feel. You know, there's some people that you vibe with. There's some people that give you that energy and that positiveness, right? So I think that's vital. Obviously, you know, you got to figure out if this is someone that I want to learn from, not just want to hang out with, which is fine, you know. But to find a mentor, you know, you really have to find someone that you kind of feed off of, you know, and then eventually you're going to feed off each other because you're going to challenge each other to get better.
And to me, my advice is a little bit more practical, is just be useful to the person that you're trying to learn from. If you're useful to people, people will be invested in your progress because you're invested in their success. You know, for me personally, like, even I got lucky to, my story with Robert Greene, where I had read his book since I was 18 years old. And then randomly, when I was in the process of writing my own book, my agent was like, hey, listen, like, Robert Greene heard about you. Do you want to talk to him? He had a stroke recently, and he wants to ask you advice about his body. And I'll be honest with you, I've met the biggest people in the entire planet. And when I received that phone call and said, yeah, do you want to meet Robert Greene? I was like, oh my God, yes, I do. I literally was like, I couldn't even control how much I was like, oh my God, like, I am starstruck by this man. So then my process, even to this day with him, I've seen him probably over 100 to 200 hours of my personal time for free. I didn't charge him 1 cent. I'd drive like an hour and a half to go to his house, do an hour and a half of treatment, and then drive home for an hour and a half, right? So, for like basically like months on end. Just in order for me to get in his good graces enough to be like, hey, Robert, like, so what do you think about this? Hey, I'm going through this. Like, what do you think about this? And even in being around his energy and how he moves and operates has made me so much better as a person. And that's, for example, how I paid my dues with Robert, because he happened to need a therapist and I happened to have what he needed, right? And that's how I, you know, now to this day, now I can literally call him right now and he'll be like, yo, what up? So, like, are you guys willing to do that? You know, people are not, nowadays, they're not just not willing to put in the work, you know?
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point and onto one of the themes we wanted to talk about, which was discipline and sacrifice are two concepts that often come up in conversations I've had with the both of you, but also with a lot of folks who are in the arena, but then also leaders and leadership in particular as a concept. And we'll love both of your takes on one, Mike, if you don't mind kicking us off, on discipline and what that concept means to you and how that translates into sacrifice.
Gosh, I mean, they go hand in hand. Discipline and sacrifice go hand in hand. And if you want to do something with, you know, if you have lofty aspirations, then I tell you what, it's going to take a ton of different discipline and sacrifice, and but it doesn't have to be miserable. It doesn't have to be oh, this is so hard. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. You're going to have some rough patches along the way, but what works for me is I do it on a day-to-day basis. Okay, I know today's going to be tough, but I got it. I got it. I prepared myself enough that it's not going to be so bad. Maybe it's a long night of flying, of landing at 2, 3 in the morning, and then you got to get up and treat them at 5 hours from now, et cetera. Or it's just we're having a mechanical, or he sprains his ankle. Shit, today's going to be tough, and then we got a back-to-back coming. It's just it can be so many speed bumps along the way. But if you're committed and you have the right mindset, you got this. It's easy.
Man, we talked about sacrifice very, very recently. You were telling me, I don't know if a story, if you recall, just on having to, just the idea of sometimes what you got to leave at home, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you will have to sacrifice so much of your own personal time. You're going to have to be with people, friends and family, and significant other that will have to understand that you are going after what you were meant to do on this earth. And you're not going to be able to spend as much time with them as much as you would like to, even though you love to. But if there's this voice inside of you that says, I need to finish this thing, like being with a good partner or a good, family structure and friend structure, they will understand that, and they will push you and you will be able to accomplish that. But if you're not willing to do that, and if if you're not willing to literally give it a lot of your life up, it will be really hard for you to do anything like on a grand scale, let alone working with athletes, to be quite honest with you. So.
But I always say you have to give of yourself, and you have to give up yourself if this is something that you're serious about doing. At anything with high performance, and you're the head clinician, or you're the head, or you're the director, or you're in charge of a group of individuals, or just this singular person, guys, you really have to just give yourself up to this. And the people that you have around you, the group, is vital because you need their support. If it's if they drag you down, we've all heard it before. If they drag you down, then you need to get rid of those people.
It's almost like
and just be real.
Yeah, like a life counsel of sorts. I've heard it broken down in that way before. Yeah. So let's move further down the spectrum. So we've talked about the journey to getting to that destination. I mean, you never get to the destination, but you're now in the arena. You are working with an athlete in both of your scenarios on a one-to-one basis. There's folks in the crowd, I could point you to them later, that could talk about an organization capacity, and you're working with multiple athletes on the team. But we'd love to dig deeper into the arena when it comes to, Nate, our director of learning and development at Mile, he's always coined this term, and a lot of folks have adopted it, which is will and skill. Right? You hear of it termed as hard skill and soft skill, right? The will is your determination, your passion, how bad you want this, and how much you're willing to put on the line for it. The other end is the technical skill, the clinical development, a lot of concepts that we're all very familiar with. A third I would add to the triangle in the sports arena is fit. Personality fit, common ground. Vin, if you don't mind kicking us off, talk about those 3 buckets.
Yeah, I think that will and skill to me is almost like the base requirement. And then fit is kind of like the X factor, where it's like really hard to kind of engineer fit, because that's kind of like your natural personality and your natural habits and your natural way of interacting with people that will determine if you're a fit with an athlete or a sports team. But will and skill is definitely something that you can work towards. But to me, it's, we were talking about this earlier. I think it's kind of like there's just millions and millions of great singers out there, right? But at the end of the day, like, there's just such a specific combination of there's only like a base level of skill that you need, and then obviously passion for the thing. But it kind of comes into like the fit side. That's like the unique thing that will make you different with the athlete. You know what I mean? That's why if it was only about will and skill, then everyone would be a world star musician, for example. But there's just so many things that needs to fit and happen also like in the world. The world needs to also be ready for you, you know? So, yeah.
Mike, your take?
Yeah, you know, a lot of times you're not going to hit that grand slam with the first pro athlete that you you know, come across, or that wants to work with you, and vice versa. So in a situation like that, you have to figure out, if I want to do this for the long run and long term, then I got to figure out some common ground here. You know, figure out what makes this athlete tick. You know, find out about their background, find out their story. You know, ask them questions that, you know, that don't even have to do with the sport, that don't even have to do with therapy. Ask them real life questions. You know, how was your night? Like they make fun of me because every morning I ask LeBron the same thing: how'd you sleep? You know, how'd you sleep? What'd you have for dinner? You know, how's Bronny? How's the family? And then we, out of a 10, I say maybe 0.5 we talk about basketball, and maybe 1% about his body. But everything else is just a flow, and you got to figure out if you and that athlete have that flow and have that correlation.
Yeah, that definitely takes us to another theme, and I've had a conversation with a lot of folks about bringing this up and digging deeper into it, which is programming, preparation, and just overall plan of care. You know, myself and my own experience coming out of private practice, a lot of folks in the room have the same experience. Max, you might see somebody 3 times a week, and that's like the ceiling of frequency and consistency you might be seeing somebody. On this end of the spectrum, in the arena, 5 might be the floor that you're seeing somebody in a week. And, you know, Mike, you also mentioned something. In that 5, you know, in private practice, we're thinking about 30-minute, 60-minute sessions. This can get to 90 minutes, 2 hours. How are you going to fill in the gap? What's the common ground? So we'd love, you know, Mike, if you don't mind kicking us off, just how you think about programming in a week, whether that's 5 to 7 days, you have a 90-minute session. How do you go into each session?
Well, for us in pro basketball, you know, the schedule dictates everything. The schedule, the game schedule, practice schedule, et cetera. Although now, you know, now in the NBA, you know, especially in this, you know, in March, April, we don't have any more practices because everyone's pretty banged up. But we always look at the schedule, and for a guy like LJ, you know, he has a high workload. He's playing a ton of minutes, and so we have to kind of organize what he's doing on those off days, and how early we start on those game days as well. And so, you know, we go week by week with him. It's okay, you know, we have a back-to-back here. We go Atlanta to Charlotte, let's just say, or this one we got Toronto tomorrow night, and then we play in where do we go? Oh, DC. Yeah, we go to Washington, D.C. after that on a back-to-back. That means we're going to land at 2, 3 in the morning, and then they have to play a game the next night. And so programming, it really just depends on what their particular sport is and what that looks like, or what the calendar looks like. But our job, number one, is just to enhance their God-given abilities. You know, it's not about him making him the greatest weightlifter in America. You know, it's just about making him the best basketball player that he can be. And we're just going to augment that either through therapy, through strength and conditioning, or other recovery methods. It's just all about augmenting. So that's number one in programming, is take a step back, look at the schedule, and look at their workload.
Yeah, and I'd add to that, like, yeah, you just have to be at a level of your craft that you can free flow insane. Because when things go wrong, you need to be able to respond, and things always go wrong, like all the time. Yeah, all the time. Yeah, that's the only thing I would add, you know?
Yeah, on the things go wrong end of things, I think that, you know, everybody here can appreciate in sport, there are the highs, there's the championships, there's the wins, and setbacks comes with performance, whether that be injury, whether that be, you know, Vin, you and I had this conversation, like, what do you tell an athlete that just lost a huge game or a huge turning point in a season? How do you navigate that conversation? How do you manage setbacks, essentially?
The funniest part is that my answer is literally what I asked Mike.
Mentorship.
Yeah. One day, because I had first started working with Chicharito, and then, you know, whenever he scores a goal, it's like so easy. Like, you know, we're in this group chat, and like the chat box goes crazy. It's like, oh, yo, like, que golazo, you know, everyone's just going crazy in the group chat. But like when we lose or when he doesn't have a great performance, I was like, yo, so like, does he want to be spoken to? like, am I gonna offend him if I text a certain thing? I wasn't really sure. So obviously I text the GOAT, and I'm like, Mike, what would you do? Like, what do you say to LJ when, the performance wasn't as good as, expected, or, when you guys suffer a loss?
Mike.
And then he answered,
how'd you sleep? No, I just I think one of the most important things that I've learned is you got to stay even keel. Whether the guy's the MVP or he's playing terrible, you got to be there, and your support level has to be even keel. You can't get too high, you can't get too low. All my friends back home, they tease me because they said, Mike, we see you on TV and LeBron has this huge dunk, and you got that face like, oh man, get me out of here. It's just I just have just the same. Stay stoic, and just be the rock for these athletes. Be their rock. And so, what I mean by that is stay consistent. If he's playing like the MVP, great. If he has a bad night, or if there's an injury, God forbid, then just be there, be stern, be supportive, and just stay even keel is my biggest message.
Appreciate that, Mike.
Yeah.
I want to dive deeper on double click. You had mentioned something, Mike, which was the value that the athlete sees in what we do and in the role that we play. And there's something you said the other day when we were together. You were talking about almost like the idea of like a council, an athlete council around that individual, and their success or all of the support system around them is like the sum of all the parts. There's a role that we play, very important, but it is a part of. There's therapy, there's strength and conditioning, there's their chef and nutrition, there's sleep, there's probably a psychologist they're working with. Can you talk about the entire team, the entire council around one athlete, how important it is, and then if you could double click on the role that we play in that council?
Yeah. Early on, and I think as far as, I'll talk a little bit about LJ. Early on, he was blessed to have this really great support system, and he figured it out early on. Okay, this guy's good with numbers. He's gonna do my management, or this guy's good with, media. So he's gonna do my PR stuff. And so he empowered, some really young folks around him, and saw the gifts early. And this is a gift that LeBron has as a leader. He saw it at 20 years old. He said, okay, I think these guys can do this, and he helped elevate them to that level now. But each part of the group, has to work synergistically. And if mom and dad, if they're still in the picture, if a spouse, a girlfriend, et cetera, kids, like we said, chef, and just everyone around the house, everyone plays an important role. And the energy and the positiveness has to be there. And it's tough because, again, you have to give of yourself, right? If I'm having a bad day, I can't bring that energy to a guy like LJ because, he relies on my energy as well. Pre-game, post-game, halftime, whatever we need to do, little nuances. Like I need to be, at the top of my game, even though I got, a wife that's pissed off because she hasn't seen me in 2 weeks, or the kids are missing me. I got to put all that to the side and just be there. Because our role, now question number 2, our role is vital because we are with them more than they are with their own families, their own wife, their own kids, et cetera. So our role is vital, and again, we have to stay even keel with it, but be sure that we are a rock for them.
Yeah, I mean, we were with an athlete recently, and then, his statement / joke is like, it takes a village, So now, in my old age, I've now every time I see someone who's extremely successful or a establishment that's extremely successful, I know that team is like locked in. So I no longer look at an artist or an athlete as just one individual. I just know that because the reason they're successful is because everything is just moving so smoothly in their corner.
I say now in year 21 that the machine. I always tell the athletic trainers and everyone asks me, the machine runs itself now. So you develop a machine. You develop a machine with, I don't have all the answers. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm an athletic trainer. Then I work with strength coaches, et cetera. So, you figure out the right parts and pieces to make this machine work, all right? So that way you can have longevity, not only the athlete, but yourself in your career. Be smart, ask for help. If there's a certain issue, we had a foot issue last year with LJ, and as soon as he did it, I said, okay, I got a foot guy. So I texted him right there in the middle of the game. I said, okay, I need to see you tomorrow.
Feedback. Feedback is such a powerful part of our experience as clinicians, as coaches. When we deliver value within that same experience, we'll often get a response on, is this going the right direction? How does that feel? Conversations I've had with both of you, especially with you, Vin, recently, is that feedback loop is very different in the sports arena, working with athletes. A lot of it is in the dark. There's a lot going through their head. They have this cerebral process of what's next, what I got to work on tonight, tomorrow morning, the next game, what's the play call, what do I got to think about, game tape. There's just so much going on. Just talk to us about, I guess, working in the dark for the most part, which is a little bit different from how we experience it in private practice.
Yeah, I think that working in private practice is it's a lot easier because when you're working with your client, you can ask him, look, how does it feel? And you can kind of like really have a natural conversation. But when you're working with an athlete that might be in his head at the moment, thinking about all the million things that he has to do before a game, and then you do a technique or you do a move or you do a stretch or whatever, and then you don't get to ask him how does it feel? Then you kind of go like, okay, like you really got to know your stuff. Because like not having the feedback sometimes, because let's say they're in a bad mood, yeah, I'm not going to talk to them right now. Right? So imagine you having to treat for like an hour without any feedback whether you're going in the right direction or not. And you can't miss. Because if you miss, then it's probably not going to be good for you, right? Especially also at the beginning. And also when you're interviewing with athletes, personally, it's fairly, to be quite honest with you, it's fairly stressful, even with me to this day, because you don't know what they're thinking. So you have to come in so dialed, so with good energy, and not get fazed by like a non-reaction too. Because sometimes you start getting super self-conscious if they don't respond or you crack a joke and it's like,
flat.
Right? And you're just like,
tough crowd.
Yeah, tough crowd. And they're like XYZ star quarterback, and they just literally did not laugh at your joke and they just like, So yeah, I would say, the feedback part. That's why it's really hard to work with pro athletes, in my opinion.
Mike, feedback on your end?
Yeah, as far as feedback goes, they're pretty quiet for most of the time. They're on their phones and iPads and stuff, watching shows or texting. But no, trust me, if you're doing something wrong, they'll let you know. Yeah, they'll like, whoa, no, I don't like that. They'll definitely let you know. Right then and there. But as far as positive feedback, I've learned that no news is good news, and if they don't, cause a big scene, hey, that hurt, then you're doing okay.
If we go to the other side of the experience for a second, the athlete's mind that we're working with, the athlete's looking at us as their clinician, their coach. What's going through their mind when they look at, and Vin, you were going in this direction, I just want to go further, is what is the value that they look at us and like, you're here to do X? What is the role that they see that we play in their experience? And I know it varies from person to person, but.
Yeah, I think it varies from person to person. Some people definitely, they need, maybe like in their own family and friend circle, they don't have a support system. So not only are you coming on to do your job as a physical therapist or a athletic therapist or whatever, but you're also there to be literally their friend and their ear, to their listening ear. Other athletes, they're looking more for like, hey, I just need the technical aspect, and like, hey, I'm really tight on time, and like, I love you and everything, but like, can we just keep this short, keep it moving, be surgical in and out? And it kind of just varies depending on what,
Yeah, and it sounds like that's where fit becomes a big part of that experience. Yeah, Mike, your take?
Yeah, I think once the athlete figures out, what their goal is and what their methodology is, then he or she will know, okay, I need Vinny for 30 minutes Okay, good. Now, Mike, for another 45 minutes. Okay, boom, done. So once the athlete has a methodology already of what they want, then don't expect a hug or a basket of flowers or anything. After each session, just or high praise. It's just the guys are really zoned in on what they want and what their goal is. So it's just, okay, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes, okay, boom, thank you. Like Vinny said, I love you, but I only got 20 minutes for you, or what have you.
And I guess I would dive into, so talking more about the value we provide and both of your journeys, right? Again, back to 30, 35 years combined on the stage here. How, as you're delivering that value, how has that evolved over time? Like the seasons of your career, is the way that you show up in that way different 10, 15 years ago, and how has that progressed over time? Mike?
Absolutely, yeah. It went, well, at least for me, from personal experience, it started athletic training, stretching. Every once in a while, before every practice, we'll do a little 15-minute stretching session. Okay, cool, done. Then it evolved into strength and conditioning. And then it was, okay, let's work with the PT to work on some things. And then it was, okay, nutrition. And so my skills have to evolve as well. And so we grew up together. This is 20-some years we're working together. But as a clinician, as an athletic trainer, now I'm doing less treatment. I still am, but I'm doing less treatment and more mental stuff now. Now it's about being, part of that close-knit support group to make sure he's good up here, to keep him on the court, this long.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go in a different direction. Working with pro athletes has allowed me to become a babysitter, a food runner, can you find me the best pillow? I've just done so many odd jobs working with athletes that I've learned to literally just be a man of service, to be quite honest with you. Absolutely. And just be, no job is too low for me. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that you are focused on what you need to do tomorrow for the game. And this is a true story. Like, he's like, hey, bro, like I'm just really stressed right now. I'm like, hey, why don't you just go have a date with wifey? I'm gonna babysit your kid, and you go have fun. And he's like, really? You're gonna do that? I'm like, yes, just go do that. And literally, I'm sitting with this child watching I don't even remember I was watching something on Hulu. The only reason I remember Hulu is because there's ads, and I hate ads on Hulu. I literally fell asleep with his child, and they came home and they had a date, and it was like, yeah, that's what I'm willing to do in order to make sure that you have a good performance tomorrow. So.
I think sorry. Yeah, no, this is what they call duties as assigned.
Yeah, and I think we all could relate, right? Like, there is a level of closeness in the relationship when you have an individual client who's the athlete in the story, but then also us in private practice. Like, there is therapeutic alliance that comes to building that common ground, and it might not be, so would you say buy a pillow or walk the dog, right? It might not be to that level or that extent, but within even the 30-minute, 60-minute sessions that we provide, we have our moments where there are things we identify we can do for the client and the hero in the story that isn't the hard skills. It is part of the therapeutic alliance, and those experiences is what essentially contributes to outcomes and us helping get folks to their goals. So, Vin, if you don't mind double-clicking on your end, Mike, you had talked about things you kind of threw out along the way in the careers and seasons of your journey. Vin, is there any of that for you as you were developing as a clinician that, 10 years ago you've thrown that out and no longer serves you and you are now this clinician today?
I just now value results over anything. So I don't really care where the technique or the school of thought comes from or who the messenger is. It doesn't matter if they're a massage therapist, chiro, physio, whatever. I try it. If I like it, I try it, and it works, I use it, and that's it. And that's kind of how it informed my style over time. A lot of people, when they develop their style of therapy, they get very dogmatic or stuck in a certain way of treating, whether it's like whoever their direct mentor was, or and over time they kind of calcify into this one way of doing things, and they never really evolve. And I pride myself on literally just always evolving, nonstop. And who I am today as a therapist is completely different. I feel like I change over my whole skill set every 3 months, to be quite honest with you. that's how much I work at it.
So as we come to wrap in here, I want to make sure that we leave enough time to allow y'all to ask some questions to these two gentlemen. I'm gonna ask a very cliche question, but whenever I'm on that side, I find so much value in, Vin, if you don't mind kicking us off, the advice you would give your younger self. 10 years ago, Vin, you just got on the scene. You had the vision, but you did not see that it was gonna be exactly like this. What would you tell young Vinh Pham?
I mean, the thing is, I literally wouldn't tell him anything different because it's kind of like, I'd be like, keep doing you, bro. I think general advice I would give to anyone, and maybe it could be my younger self, is it's learn how to enjoy giving of yourself. Learn how to be a person of service because, for example, LA is a very interesting place. So I currently live in LA, and I was having a conversation with friends, and they were, we were talking about how why people come to LA with full of dreams and they leave not making it essentially, And my opinion was always people come to LA to take from LA, and they trying to, I'm gonna get famous, I'm gonna become an actor, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make money, I'm gonna do this. And my mentality when I came to LA 2 years ago was, how am I going to be useful to LA? What am I going to give? And how is LA going to be better when I step foot on the ground there? And I was like, I remember doing a Nike talk in LA, and I was like, I'm going to fix everyone's back in LA. I'm going to do everything it takes to make sure that everyone understands movement health and takes care of their body the minute I land, because that's what I care about, And in having that mentality and purpose of just giving without thinking about anything else, 2 years later, I'm sitting next to Mike. You know what I mean? I made it, baby.
Yeah.
Mike, the younger Mike, what would you tell him?
What I give the younger Mike, the way younger Mike, just be ready for anything. Be flexible. Be ready for anything. Again, enjoy being that giver, right? Just being that man of service or the clinician of service. And no job is too small. No job is too small, especially when you're trying to make it. You intern and you just got to grind. You got to work, but never lose sight of your goal, obviously. But stay in the present. I would say that to younger Mikes. Stay in the present. I know you want to get there. You'll get there eventually, but just don't forget to cherish today and to take care of yourself.
So before we wrap, I love wrapping these conversations with vision. Where are we going, right? So obviously both of you have identified a huge opportunity in the sports arena when it comes to movement health and the value that we all could provide, and broadened in the spectrum, creating a new pathway for folks like us to be able to be of service in the athletic arena. Vin, if you mind kicking us off, talk us through the vision. Where's the world going, and what role do we play in that?
Yeah, I think that my personal mission right now is how do I bring this idea of movement health to the entire planet, and then how do I build every single facet of it. Again, the analogy I always use is everyone understands dental health. It's like let's say you're going from the smallest problem, it's like toothbrush, toothpaste, dental hygienist, dentist, orthodontics, dental surgeon, for example. So depending on what your issue is, everyone generally understands who they need to go see. But when it comes to back pain, neck pain, any of these issues, who do you go see? Chiro, physio, massage, ice, heat, acupuncture, tai chi, yoga, stretch, don't stretch, stabilize, don't stabilize. It's just really confusing. Versus if I ask you guys, hey, I have a cavity, who do I go see? I go see a dentist. Hey, I have something stuck in my teeth. Toothpick, I guess. Floss, so it's just so clear in the dental health world and literally every other industry, but when it comes to movement health, it is absolutely confusing. And that's kind of what why I started Myo was because I wanted to solve that, and then Myo to me is the dentist part of it. And then currently I'm working on, with Mike, on this agency where we provide this high-level service to all these athletes around the world that need us, right? Because again, even for them to build a team, it's just really confusing. So we will help demystify that. And to me, the people that would be working at a place such as this agency would be the highest level orthodontics / dental surgeons in the world. So, and I'm literally building it because I just want to build for the future of our industry. Because I've personally like done so much now, and I'm actually really tired, and I would not want to continue to follow another athlete for. But Mike's gonna do LeBron's son after this. He's gonna follow Bronny.
We'll see.
Another 20 years.
Another 20 years.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But that's the vision for me. It's like, how do I build every single facet of movement health, top to bottom? And obviously, I'm very grateful for everyone in the crowd who is part of Mile, and not part of Mile as well, to be pushing this mission forward with us. So,
Mike, your vision sound the same?
The vision is obviously, you know, our agency and getting it off the ground, and you know, providing service for these pro athletes. But for me, the one thing to add to that is the education component. You know, if you can educate these athletes and coaches, strength coaches, athletic trainers, therapists, on working synergistically, and is I think gone are the days of, oh, I got my own personal trainer. Or, okay, that's great, and you know, that's awesome. But I believe now in a multifaceted approach. You know, because again, that one person probably doesn't know everything. And so, you know, have that confidence in finding the right physical therapist, finding the right movement coach, strength and conditioning coach, athletic trainer, mental coach. You know, we always forget about that. So my goal and my vision now is just more on an educational piece, an educational component. And guys, it does take more than just one person. It does take a village.
Thank y'all. And turn it over to y'all for questions. That hand went up fast, sir. Pass the mic back.
Thanks for coming. This has been really cool to hear you guys talk and hear your stories. I'm curious, as you talked about fit, I'm curious how you worked on authentic fit. I think sometimes we can kind of stretch ourselves and who we are as a person to try to meet someone else's needs. So I'm curious about how you guys have worked on yourself. Like, tell me about that leadership of self and how you found out who you were and how you could show up as that authentic fit.
I think for me personally, I would say, number one, is this the person that I want to work with? You know, do I see myself working with this athlete for, you know, a multitude of years, you know, months, years, or whatever? If it's not, you know, if I can, you know, I can kind of, I'm a good judge of character, I would say. If it's not, then that's what I call Vinny, you know? You know, hey, Vinny, can we find another therapist? But before you do that, you know, really try to find, again, common ground. Try to find common ground. Get to learn more about the person, you know. And if it's still not, if it's still like pulling teeth, or you dread it, well, chances are he or she dreads it as well, you know. So it's not just one-sided. It's probably a very mutual relationship.
And for me personally, I would say if you want to go the opposite route, is if you want to make yourself a better fit for a multitude of athletes, you would have to really dial down on your own self-awareness and really analyze how you communicate, how you move, how you act as a person, you know. And to me, the reason why I feel like I could fit with fairly a various amount of personalities, because I just understand, like kind of like depending on the person I'm dealing with, how do I show, I'm not really necessarily changing myself, it's just showing another facet of my personality, because this person will work better with this version of Vinny, you know? And this other person would prefer like, yo, what up? You know, that other version of Vinny. So it kind of depends on who I'm dealing with, yeah. And I can shift and switch because I've just spent so much time developing myself personally. So.
Thanks, Mike and Vin, for having this conversation. Maybe both of you guys can talk about this, but with where sports science is going, do you see players having the same longevity as the LeBron James, Tom Brady? Is that
where it's going, or is there something about them that makes them special, or is there things that they're doing differently from your guys' perspective?
I think sports science is proving now that it's here and it's not going anywhere, you know. And the proof is in the numbers. And I see a lot of pro sports teams now really investing heavy dollars in data, in analytics, in sports performance research. So I do believe that it can benefit athletes. You know, we always joke, okay, we have these computers and we have these force plates and we have all these numbers. Now what do we do with them? You know, the schedule's still the schedule. Practice is still at this time. You know, what exactly do we do with these numbers? And I think you really have to study it on a case-by-case individual basis as to what can you extract from that. You know, sometimes it's very minute, to be honest, because again, you know, we're dealing with pro sports. And no head coach is going to say, okay, well, you know what, you know, your numbers aren't pretty good today, so you can sit this practice out. That doesn't happen in the real world, you know. So as a clinician, you have to be able to get those numbers, get all that data, and figure out how to work within the system, which is practice, games, flying, travel, all of that. So yeah, it can help, but you got to know what to do with all the numbers.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. That was great.
Thanks you guys both for coming in and speaking to us. You both mentioned separately kind of how much of yourself you have to give. What are you kind of doing for yourself, you know, to be able to not drain yourself and really kind of be able to provide the quality of care you guys are providing?
I'll personally, for me, like I took a vacation for the first time in 8 years, like last year. You know what I mean? So when you're asking me about like taking care of myself, it's not something that I've done, to be quite honest with you, for the first 8 years of building Mayo. So nothing is what I would answer to that. But having said that, when I went on vacation last year, I went to Greece for 10 days. I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to be on vacation. And this is actually kind of nice. And now I've decided to definitely do that at least once or twice a year. So I'm evolving myself as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say just, as I mentioned earlier, just be present. Be present in the day. You know, try not to stay up late too much. When you do have an off day or you know, a day off from work, you know, it doesn't mean you got to go and, you know, stay out till 2 in the morning and see everybody, all your friends that you haven't seen. You know, just take a little selfish time to yourself and just enjoy the day and your family. That's the most important thing for me.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for that. Before we wrap, Mike, you got an exciting project on the way.
I almost forgot.
Yeah, I had the good fortune of, hopefully I held it down for you, but I was a model in the book. Hopefully I held the poses really good. But would love for you to share with the group the inspiration for the book, what it's about, and yeah, a bit of the story that you're telling.
Yeah, so you know, after 20 years of working together and talking to his team and just his managers, et cetera, you know, we got to talking one day and said, you know, Mike, what's next for you after he's done? I said, just, you know, throw my phone in the ocean. Is what I want to do. But then, you know, we got to talking. They said, you know what, you should write a book. And I said, well, a book about what? And they said, you've been writing it for 20 years. Just our process and what we do and how, and then I cut him off and said, yes, and how everyone can benefit from it. You know, from a pro athlete to mom and dad at home, you know, working parents, single mom, single dad, et cetera. And so I said, okay, cool. I love that. I love that idea of getting some of these principles that we worked on for, like, again, for over 20 years to help develop this once in a generational athlete, but get some of those tidbits of information and research and just make it accessible to everyone, to all of us. And even if we're not dunking at the age of 39, you know, but we're still, you know, we don't have back pain. You know, we're flexible. We have good core strength. You know, good posture, et cetera. And our quality of life improves, even just the hair. Well, then we've done something positive. And so that's really the premise behind the book. It's nutrition, it's movement, it's recovery methods, etc. But the most important thing is the mindset. And you know, all these things I mentioned, and we talk about cold baths and cold tubs and recovery and stretching and soft tissue work. But the most important thing, guys, is just the mindset. And so I really spend a lot of time talking about the mindset and talking about sacrifice.
Congrats, Mike.
And there it is.
Exciting new project. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for carving out time to have this conversation. If you give these gentlemen a round of applause, please. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So I don't think there's a particular time. We got to get out of here unless we get kicked out. So the bar is open. Y'all hang out. We want to have some time for y'all to connect, colleagues in the space, and just so many conversations we could have with each other off the energy of this conversation. Once again, thank you, Altia, for hosting us. Christina, Youth Studio, appreciate y'all coming in and capturing this event. We're excited to share this conversation with the world. And again, thank y'all so much for carving out time to hang out and take up space with us. Let's hang, let's connect with each other. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Am I missing anything, Jay? You good? Just have fun. Party.